Well, I want to welcome this amazing force of nature named Kiran Gandhi, who performs as Madame Gandhi, an award-winning artist and activist known for her uplifting, percussive electronic music and positive image that is all about gender liberation and personal power. So I know that that's who you are and what you live for. I'm going to put all the description of who more about what Kiran does and is doing this today. But first of all, welcome, Kiran.
Thank you so much. Family friend, we've grown up together, so it's really special to come back in this context. Thank you for having me.
Totally, I really appreciate it. So it's been a long time coming, as you know. So, Karen, usually the first question I ask most of my guests, and this podcast is about unity consciousness, which is not usually understood by most people, but my listeners tend to be people who are, who know they have so much to give in life and actually be creative and live their truths, but they're not bold enough. And you are such an epitome of being bold. So I'm going to say, who is Kiran Gandhi as opposed to what she does?
I love it. I am light. I am power, joy, freedom, resilience, bravery, fearlessness. These are some of the words that I hold as my own personal values and personal tenets. And my name, Kiran, means ray of light, first ray of light. And I always felt grateful to my parents for that name because I feel that it is the way that I try to prioritize my own values and my own choices.
That's wonderful because in my book and my living, I have, as you start writing and saying things and tapping into your power, as you say, authenticity, congruence comes to mind. So from my perspective, I see authenticity in action. So in your journey, though, there must have been moments of profound internal shift for you, right? When you're doing the work you do. I know a couple of things and we'll talk about those, but can you share a deeply personal experience that transformed your core beliefs and how it has redirected your path, both sort of, artistically and as a force for social change?
Yes, I actually feel that I'm constantly seeking these transformational experiences as intentionally as I can. On a daily basis, if it's possible, really genuinely. I think for so long in my childhood and, early 20s, let's say, it was always about playing a bit of a role self unconsciously, wanting to make your parents happy, wanting to be considered the star child, being the eldest child. So, getting good grades, having sort of on paper resume accolades. But the truth is that luckily I was always really tapped into my own joy and really aware of when I genuinely lit up. And it was usually moments when I followed my own intuition and my own path, not necessarily in alignment with what adults were guiding me to do. And it was times when I would sneak backstage in New York City or lie about my age so that I could meet the drummer, on stage afterwards, or playing the drums myself and noticing how it delivered joy to so many people and inspiration to so many people, let alone personal power to myself. And so every time that I have chosen to follow intuition and joy, I have reaped the benefits of it such that that joy outweighs the small marginal benefits of playing a role that appeases other people, even if it's your own parents. And so the more I would strengthen that muscle, which is choosing my own major at college, like choosing math to make my parents feel good, but then choosing gender liberation and gender studies because that just genuinely interested me, or pursuing a job at a record label, Universal Music, which was not a traditional career path, very non-traditional, but an incredible job, legitimate salary, touring around the world, drumming for MIA, running the London Marathon, free bleeding, choosing a partner who lives out here in London. There's just so many countless experiences in my life that every time I've moved from a place of joy and intuition, I have reaped the benefits of it. And so I like to keep my path weaving in the moment.
Well, for a lot of people, some of this is above their heads, I think, for even, I mean, I get it as much as I can get it, but, I'm an oldest child too. So, pleasing the parents becomes the paramount thing because that's all you come into life with. And the program's already been set and you're supposed to follow it. So how would you say that, because joy you would think is universal, everybody has it. What does it take to tap into it? It's you said sort of natural to you, but for people who are living a life of external, five senses, how do you recognize that you are joy and love?
I think the first is to really spend time by yourself. When we decontextualize things and we stop going on Instagram for a moment and stop talking to other people, you are left with only yourself. And I
Mm.
find that to be very profound. And it takes sometimes digger soul searching and deeper work to identify what it is that it even gives us joy. And I'll never
Yes.
forget in the pandemic, 2020, so many things that I love were taken away from me. And I was really left to sit with myself in my beautiful loft in downtown LA that had such memories. And I had such depression, I had such sadness. I felt so low and I didn't expect it because I felt, oh, I'm a happy person. I travel the world. I make my music. But I noticed that so many things that I derived joy from were still external and they were still accolades and they were still reward oriented, dopamine oriented. And so since the pandemic, that really began my own spiritual journey. Stop, like I've completely let go of alcohol. It's been 3 years, no smoking. I eat plant-based. Like there's just a lot of choices that I made to start clearing the temple so that I could start kind of digging deeper and finding that light. For me, I know that I am feeling joyful when I'm not looking left and right at what other people are doing, when I don't feel jealous of somebody else, when I don't want to buy anything, I don't want to overeat, I don't need anything. It's a sense of deep spark, satisfaction, light. And then more so than anything, it's actually now having something to give. You have your own presence to give, your own awareness, your own
Mhm.
happiness, your own affirmation. You have bandwidth to support others. So these are some of the ways that I would describe my own relationship to joy and how I maintain it.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful, Karen. So you mentioned the London Marathon earlier, but you've taken bold steps and challenged societal norms, such as the decision to free bleed during the marathon, which I know a lot of people who I don't even know, when I mention something about that, they know about you. So these are, would you call them acts of defiance, or is it that, obviously it's shaped your mission and what you're doing today. So can you talk a little bit about if it's an act of defiance, or what was that about for you?
When you're not seeking the affirmation of others, you are immediately free and you're immediately able to think critically and have your own relationship and you have confidence in your own ability to analyze and make a decision. And I remember being at the London Marathon and I was like, I'm on day one of my period. I don't know what people do in this situation. It doesn't sound comfortable to run for 4.5 hours with these
Of
products
course.
that really don't seem fit for the job. And so it
Mm.
wasn't, it's funny because it wasn't supposed to be this global viral act of defiance. It was just me showing up for myself in my own body that day, making the decision
Mm.
that I knew was radical. I'd never really seen anybody free bleeding, but I also knew it was badass, and it also gave me an opportunity to celebrate bodies that bleed, bodies that menstruate. So I remember running and I'm bleeding and I'm like, wow, like this is amazing. Like this is like punk rock. Like this is
Oh
badass.
my
Like I knew there was something there. It was just so raw. And I think I pleasantly surprised myself because I had never run on day one of my period. I think bleeding from anywhere and running is like a heroic move. So I knew there was something in the power of it and the symbolism of it. And the fact that all over the world, women and people who bleed are hiding what's happening so naturally and beautifully, and it's actually to
Mhm.
our detriment. It's causing health problems. It's preventing disease from being diagnosed. It's preventing girls from having accurate education when they do start bleeding. Also,
Mhm.
menopause. There's so much stigma around age. So
Right.
I knew there was something there. And when I crossed the finish line and I wrote about this experience, it changed my life because when we show up for ourselves and we're brave, we end up showing up for so many more than we would have thought. So that story went viral and it sparked this conversation around why is it that we stigmatize menstruation, this normal biological fact. And to this day, we've just seen so much change in that conversation and so much more body positivity.
Mm. So, would you characterize that as the major change, or I mean, we all have lots of turning points in our lives along the way. You're young and you're vibrant, and so was that one major one, or the major one for you, that brought you to where you are today, and all the stuff
Absolutely,
you did?
absolutely, absolutely, because it was on a global scale. I mean, even if you think about the career of a musician and the little bit of notoriety in the music world that I had gained as the drummer for MIA and touring, this spoke to women and people who bleed in every culture all across the world on levels that were
Mm-hmm.
unimaginable to me. And I think it allowed me to remember the power of each of us, that when we are moving authentically, when we are moving sincerely, earnestly, with
Of course.
bravery, really quite profound things can happen in our life. And I think for me, I like to measure my life by the depth and profoundness of experience. I can have a
Yes.
profound experience with an Uber driver, with a barista, with someone who crosses my life just in the plane for a moment. And this is how life feels long. It feels deep. It feels with
Yes.
profundity, you know? So that's how I try to measure things.
Well, I got goosebumps because this is what I like. This is what I think I do, and no, a lot of people don't understand
Yes.
that, and that's like,
Yes.
you're
But you've
strange,
so
buddy.
now you've said that a few times. But you've said that so many times. You've said people don't understand that, but I don't think this is esoteric. I think this is affirming. I think capitalism has taught us that we can't be joyful because actually what we're supposed to do is make a bunch of money. But I
Hmm.
actually think this conversation is very accessible. I know what you mean, that people who don't want to tune into this because it's safer to believe that the
Yes.
hamster wheel job is the thing. That I definitely agree with you, that it's too scary to admit
Yeah.
that the path that I'm on may not be serving me. So I'm just going to stay on the path. That's true.
So,
But I don't think it's esoteric. I think like optimizing for joy is accessible because it's childlike in its nature. It's very simple and pure in its nature.
well, that is what I'm looking for, because this is the thing. So if somebody's on a hamster wheel, they've done this all the time, but they know there's a voice inside them. They want to go express themselves in different ways because that's been placed in them somehow, right, by the divine or
Yes,
whatever. But in the world today, people, not even today, it's for ages, if you leave your job and whatever you other people
you're
think about
crazy.
it, it's crazy. So it's in the sense it's not esoteric because it's natural to us, right? So in that sense, it shouldn't be. But it has become somewhat woo-woo conversation. I'm a coach, for example, and they say, "Oh, he's a woo-woo coach." I like that. I'm the woo-woo coach.
Yeah,
Call me whatever you want to
yeah,
call me, because I'm not your run-of-the-mill guy. But
yeah,
therefore, there are not that many people who are willing to take that chance that I did, for example,
yeah,
20 years ago,
yeah.
to just go
It's true.
into
It
this
takes an
woo-woo
enormous
mode.
amount of bravery. No, you're exactly
Yes.
right. It takes bravery. It
Yeah.
takes a sense of self-confidence, which the word confidence, confidere, like with trust, with
Yes.
fidelity, with belief within.
Mhm.
It's a very deep thing to be able to trust the self in a world that's telling you the answers are externally on Google, in the
Right.
Bible, with your
Yeah.
therapist, in a book, on some
Yes.
podcast that you have to listen to. But actually, the real truth is your own experience to the world is what's needed. And we need you to tap in order to
Right.
witness the world in an authentic way. I do believe it's accessible. I want to believe that it's accessible to more people.
Yes. So again, I speak of authenticity and congruence a lot, and bold and conscious. These are my kind of words that I,
Yes. Ooh.
constantly. So authenticity is a term that's often used, but rarely understood in its depth. So from your experience, Kiran, what is living authentically? I mean, you've described a bunch of these things. What does it mean at its core, and how does that manifest in your day-to-day life decisions? I know you've made some shifts in let's say, not drinking and being plant-based, but how does it hold you at its core?
Yeah, I don't mind being quite personal because I've done so much work around this, which is that actually, for the longest time, my father, he's a very big personality, very strong personality. He
Of
yells a
course.
lot, he's angry, he goes from 0 to 100. And so in the household, when I'm expressing myself and it's immediately attacked, from an adult who's supposed to be your caretaker and from the opposite gender, it's very oppressive. And so for
Mhm.
the longest time, you learn how to avoid those situations, how to sort of play along, how to appease, but it actually will make you go crazy. It'll make you have bad behavior, bad habits, coping mechanisms. You don't feel good. And so then ultimately you're like, I've been trusting you. I've been following you. I've been participating in making sure that you're happy. And over time, I'm seeing that it actually doesn't benefit me. And that actually when I
Mm.
follow my own path, I'm much more successful and joyful in a way that is good for me. And that actually, as if I make mistakes following my own intuition, I can manage for those mistakes because I chose to be there. If I've listened to somebody else who I think has my best interest at heart, which maybe they do or don't, but I'm not listening to myself, when I make those mistakes, it's way worse and way more painful because I didn't want to do that decision to begin with. And
Mm.
so really it's actually having that voice quieted, that feeling of authenticity and that true self, being forced to be a role self, a role self, a role self. Over time, I've learned that it's just, how about no? How about I'm just here to shine? I'm here to be exactly who I am. If you want to come on the journey, come with me. If it's not for you, I'll keep a distance and I'll optimize for things that remind me to stay in the path of being myself and rewards that. So it's actually on the back of experiencing some trauma around being my authentic self and being
Yes.
afraid to be that self that has made me shine even brighter.
This is, it resonates with me, obviously, because I've been through a similar path and living most of my life pleasing somebody else, my dad or
Yes.
my boss or what have you. So yes, and
Yes.
so I'm going to continue on the authentic living question here, but it often comes with its challenges, as you described some, especially in the public
Yes.
eye. So the work you do is in the public eye. So is there one or maybe one is enough you faced in maintaining your authenticity and how you overcame it in given that you're so out there with with your music and with your activism?
I think when we grow up with a voice that feels critical, then even if it's no longer that person's voice, even at 34, about to be 35, that voice is still there. Especially when I'm quiet, when I'm on more hormonal parts of my cycle and my emotions are not as confident and strong. So you asked me about how do I overcome, but the hardest thing is actually routinely managing the inner voice of critique. This is not good enough. Nobody cares. You are not deserving. You are not worthy. You're not trying hard enough. Nothing is good enough. All of these voices are so strong, but they're not the truth. And when I sleep, when I drink water, when I go for a run, when I build sort of mini wins that allow me to come back to myself, then I'm fine to post on social media. Then I'm fine to engage with my friends and my community because I'm in alignment and I believe very genuinely with what I'm posting. But when my mental health is not right, then I actually refrain from posting because then I'm too addicted to the response and I'm too worried about the response. But if you're healthy mentally and you're fine mentally, then whatever you post, it doesn't matter. Like, it's quite amazing how the lens and the goggles with which we see the world is completely based on what's happening in the mind.
So I'm going to talk about bold because you and your mom, and I've seen that how bold you guys are in living your authentic self. So in this book that I wrote last year, we define bold as has 5 elements. It is decisive, ambitious, convinced about and having the conviction of whatever you believe in. And then there are 2 H's, humility and heart-centered, which are, so this is our own definition that we came up with. But when I say that, what does that strike you? And how do you define that differently for you?
If that feels good, it feels good for humility and heart-centered choices to be the North Star. It's so refreshing.
How can that be bold in the traditional way, right?
Yeah, because if you're bold from a heart space, it makes people feel good. It makes people feel teary-eyed. It makes people feel permission. It makes people want to express themselves more because you're modeling the behavior of, look what happens when you express yourself. You actually are going to win. But we see so often someone expressing themselves and then they are oppressed for it. So most people are too afraid. But it's really quite wonderful when we're brave enough to express ourselves authentically and then others see it rewarded and celebrated and there's joy and success. Then people say, okay, cool. I also want to express myself and be honest and authentic. So it's a leadership, it's about leadership. And that is something that my father very much celebrates in my brother and sister and I is go out there and be a leader, use your skill sets for good, use your passion for purpose. These are very much things that my father is even teaching right now through social impact at Harvard Business School. So, I give him that credit because my mom and my dad always raised us with a sense of you've been given a lot. So what are you going to do to build on that? And when I think of humility and heart-centeredness, it feels like it's forever. It feels sustainable. It doesn't feel like you're proving something to somebody else. It feels like you can be living to 120 from those two values alone. And then, of course, boldness.
That's right. So that brings me to consciousness. Since you're a living example of consciousness, in a world where action is celebrated, introspection and self-care are like often, as I said, considered woo-woo. How do you incorporate those into your life? And particularly because you're also working with others and you have a team and, you're creating music from, out of, in other ways, I know that you've went down to Antarctica and did recorded a bunch of dolphin sounds and so on, which I want to talk about too, if you have time. So consciousness.
The immediate thing that comes to mind when I think of the word consciousness is presence of your human attention. And if you look at the way even tech is structured right now, all of them are competing for our attention. Are you on our app? Are you scrolling on our app? How do we keep you streaming Spotify music for as long as possible? All they want is our attention on the app, on the platform. And that is because our attention is the most valuable thing there is. So we have to very intentionally and thoughtfully curate our attention, decide where am I going to give my human force, my eye contact, my love, my vitality, my vibrance. And I have learned that by choosing where it is that I want to show up, showing up fully, full presence, that's how I've benefited so many times in my life. I don't come half on my phone, half there. I don't arrive not wanting to be there. If I don't want to be there, I just don't go. If I don't want to show up, I just say it's a no for me. And it's actually the kindest thing you can do to somebody, because then they will find wherever they also need to go. So consciousness for me is related to where do I joyfully, 100% with intention, place my human focus and attention.
Beautifully said. I mean, we talk about in our book, it's consciousness is life is happening to me, by me, or through me. So sometimes it's all at once, because I'm in charge. I'm doing this. And then on the other hand, it's like, I can't, I'm part of life. Life is, happening to me. No, it's not. It's happening for me to really learn something. So that brings me to what takes you to these extreme situations where you actually go down to the cold Antarctica and then I mean, I'm only doing this based on what I know from Instagram posts, and we haven't talked about this. So what was the genesis of that? And then I know you were after something with sounds, and you're a drummer originally, but you're doing a lot of different music and percussion, etc., and creating sounds and authentic sounds that you incorporate into music. Is that fair to say, or no?
Yes, absolutely. In the pandemic, where the only place we could be was nature, I started this process of recording nature sounds. And I spent time at a retreat center in Woodstock called Sound Mana, where one of the head instructors there taught me how to record raw sound material, like a stream, pebbles dropping into the water, wood chips, the wind, things like that.
Wow.
And sample the sound material and then produce electronic music. So the actual electronic music may sound like drums and synthesizers and bass tones that we recognize, on the music industry, in the music industry today, but the music is 100% organically sourced from nature. And so you're repurposing the sounds to make synthesizers and drum kits, that are rocks and pebbles and things like that, but sound like snare drums and kick drums. And so then I took the concept one step further during my master's last year at Stanford, and I went out to Antarctica with a bunch of hydrophones, underwater microphones that Stanford Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics had taught me how to make. And we recorded the sound of the earth melting, of glaciers under the water, literally melting in the ocean. And so it's this tragic sound, but it's literally the sound of climate change. And I wanted to use that as an opportunity for empathy and for building awareness around what's happening. When we are closer to nature, when we fall in love with nature, we are more motivated to do something about it, because we really feel that sense of oneness that you have been talking about in this podcast. And so the pack of music will come out in April. It will be an opportunity for creators all around the world to make their own Antarctica beats. I'm hoping to make an AI computer-generated sound also off of those individual musical pieces, and then hopefully a meditation album.
Wow. Can't wait to hear all this.
Thank you. Thank you.
So your music, and so we're talking about music now, so your music and activism obviously resonate deeply on an emotional level with many people. That's why you have all these followers. How do you tap into your own emotional depths to create work that not only inspires, but also really catalyzes changes in others?
I have to give credit to my partner for that. I think she and I have built like a really safe, good space for me to process so many of my Piscean, rich, deep emotions. And actually, the other day, a friend of mine had sent me a picture from the birthday book, which has a write-up of sort of a snapshot of someone's personality from every day of the year. And something that really resonated from mine, which is February 21st, was that people born on this day they have a tough time feeling understood because they have a lot of emotional depth and
Mhm.
therefore finding it hard to connect. And for me, it's true. I've always sought friendships that allow me to have deep emotional intimacy. And the book
Mhm.
says, once that person on February 21st finds the person who can hold space for that depth, it's a wrap. That's their person. They're so thrilled. Everything else, is easy.
Wow.
And for me, it's so true. I wouldn't have been able to put that into my own words.
Hmm.
But of all the things in my partnership right now that I'm so happy about, it is true that the way that she's able to hold space and allow me to process and release my emotions as they come and go, this has created enormous amounts of mental health and strength for me. Then I feel quite brave when I go out in the world, and I actually feel like I have a lot of bandwidth to give others.
Hmm. I mean, obviously, all this woo-woo stuff we've been talking about for most people here, as I said, maybe it's approachable now and it's accessible.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
spiritual dimension to activism and art, right? And you've talked about
Yes.
your spirit, and how does your spirituality or I guess your personal belief system, because of whatever you believe, inform your activism and artistic expression? Because that is so, integrated or integral, I should say.
One thing my mom and dad did really well growing up, and especially for me being the eldest, they exposed us to so many cultures. My mother is Irish and Indian, so we were seeing Catholic culture in Dublin. We were going to church, but then we were also celebrating all of the Hindu holidays and religions,
Yeah.
especially when we lived in Mumbai. Now, my
Mhm.
mom's side of the family lives in Dubai, where we see a lot more of the Islamic culture permeate throughout the
Yeah.
Middle East. My father is Sikh, so we go to the Gurdwara, we learn about that religion, kirtan, singing, mantras.
Mhm.
We lived in Hong Kong, we lived in London. So I think it's exposure to so many types of religious traditions, spiritual traditions, and not being forced to be an active member of any one of them, but actually as
Mhm.
a kid being able to see, wow, so many of these communities share many of the same values. It's
Yes.
heritage, culture, a sense of oneness, spirituality, the ability to vibrate your chest cavity with others while affirming things that are good for you in the
Mhm.
mantras. So much of it is what I do as a musician, but not through any one denomination. And so many of the values and morals that I've learned through religions, through spirituality, through my yoga and meditation, they come out in the lyrics. And so in
Mm.
that way, I love being able to be in one context, learn something, and then recontextualize it by having it in my music videos or in my lyrics.
Wow. So, I call myself an omnist. I guess you are too,
Yes.
because you're all
Yes.
embracing, right? It doesn't matter. The
Woo!
values are essentially, and the core values of all human beings are effectively the same,
That's right.
no matter what you follow. So, but surely none of this is possible without some kind of mentorship. I mean, you mentioned a couple of coaches or rather teachers.
Yes.
Who have been your mentors or pivotal figures? You mentioned mom and dad as well, who've guided you towards
Yes.
living in that authentic way.
Every day I am listening to Deepak Chopra. I'm listening to his
Mm.
meditations. I actually think I'm quite impressed with the way that he has been able to distill so many of these ancient learnings, but remove them from their original context and make them applicable to today's context. I think that's where he adds enormous value to the conversation around consciousness today. And I benefit from it. And I think, especially being Indian, I actually really appreciate learning from another Indian rather than learning yoga and meditation and turmeric lattes, from the Western world. So I do appreciate that. But, if I'm being honest in the personal reflection, I actually think I could stand to invite more mentorship into my life. I think I would really benefit from that.
Okay, well, there you go. You're an open person.
Calling it
Here we
in.
go. Calling it in.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say final questions because there's so many questions. The audience here who are aspiring entrepreneurs, let's say, who seek to lead with soul and authenticity, but they don't know it yet. What message would you like to share with them along in their journey? Because it's post-pandemic, all the fears had come in. Now there seem to be again dissipated, but they're still unsure. I want to do something, but I don't know how or
Yeah,
when.
there's so many levels. I think the simplest level is spend time by yourself. Then,
Mhm.
really truly like be brave enough to just turn off the phone for a moment and be able to go inward. The second level would be genuinely sitting for meditation, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Whether you want to use a mantra to repeat, you can, or if you want to just focus on the breathing, you can. An even deeper level than that is breath work, deep, intense, powerful breathing.
That's
This
right.
is a way to bring up trauma, to intentionally hyperventilate so that you can realize what the cells and what sort of the subconscious are carrying. A lot of times
Right.
there is a lot of unexpected pain. And I
Hmm.
think in the same way people, are afraid of childbirth and hyperventilating and cardio and things like that, there's enormous amounts of learning on the other side of that discomfort. And I think
Hmm.
if you can do it privately, then you don't feel distracted by the crazy faces or sounds you might be
Of course.
making to worry that somebody else is distracted. I found that to be enormously cathartic, especially if you do it on a virtual platform where someone's guiding you. Deeper work, I mean, taking mushrooms, taking ayahuasca, like these sort of deeper plant-based medicines have really opened up so many of my own neuro pathways. And it only took once or twice to benefit from that and then integrate in the real planet. So I think these are some of the my menu of options of to where to start. And then on
Okay.
a daily basis, movement, meditation, what food are you putting into your body, eating right, sleeping, water. So for me, I like to keep it real simple, like a little baby. I don't like to take too many of like the health fad things like that. I'm more interested in what nature can provide.
Beautiful, guys. If you're listening and watching, both here, take it from this person who knows what she's talking about. So, are you open to some rapid fire
Let's
questions?
go.
Like one word, two words, whatever phrases.
I'm in.
Favorite city?
New York City.
Last book read?
Adult children of emotionally immature parents.
That's a book? It's a
Yeah.
book you're writing, or that's the book you read?
Exactly. A little bit of both.
Okay. All right. Guilty pleasure. Sounds like you have none, but go ahead.
Like gluten-free vegan carrot
Oh,
cake, chocolate cake, cookies, like all the vegan junk food.
coffee or tea?
Matcha.
One word to describe your music.
Joyful.
Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yes.
If so, biggest role model in business?
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. The other questions I had, I don't think we need to go through. So this is good. I really appreciate this.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I never, and this is one of my questions always that I end with, never take anything for granted. So I really appreciate your presence here. I feel like I can keep talking to you forever. I have this feeling, but truly it's an honor because a lot of people who are listening, hear your voice and you have such I call you the force of nature. I don't know. I can't come up with any other word right now, or phrase right now. You are, you're bold as bold can be. And I think these are feelings that people have, these bottled up things like, I can do this. I can do this. You are uniquely gifted. And I know you believe that. And that's how you've shared that, some of you with us today. So in that vein, is there anything you discovered in this conversation here today?
That I need to get some role models.
Mm.
That life is so beautiful. How you and I have met, when I was a kid, and now we have this gorgeous podcast opportunity. It's really kind. I feel really included and supported.
Wow, it's just beautiful.
And may we all keep our hearts open with great humility.
Heart open. It's the only thing. It's the only thing that there
That's
is
my
because
song,
it's the
Heart Wide
gateway.
Open.
So I have 3 songs here. I wanted to see if you can do a snippet for us. The first one on my list was Heart Wide Open. Then it was Date Me and Set Me Free. And I like the light sort of chorus and the Heart Wide Open, in the light and a few other things.
Yeah.
Would you be
Yeah.
able to
I
do
mean,
that?
acapella. Yeah, of course. I can do a little acapella, but I think you got to just play them in the track because so much of my talent is actually in the production of it, the multi-layers and the sampling and things like that. But I
I
think my
might use that
favorite
for
part
my
of Heart
audio
Wide Open.
recording for this podcast. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
current.
absolutely. Use
Yeah,
Heart Wide
but
Open for sure. I can do a
sure.
little bit though.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. Thank you.
I really love singing the post chorus of Heart Wide Open because I sing it a lot as a mantra for myself, which
Uh-huh.
is and I'm keeping it honest now. I'm keeping it honest, keeping it wise. I'm keeping it healthy. I'm keeping it pure and I choose to survive. And I'm staying on it. When I'm staying on it, I change my life. I'm changing my life. I'm changing my life now. Moving towards the light, the light, the light. That's the part that you like. So
Yes.
that's also my favorite part because it was my birthday when I wrote that, and I was on the flight back from Costa Rica to Stanford a couple years ago, and I remember I felt great depth when I wrote those lyrics, and I was like, yep, these are the lyrics. It has importance for me. It has profoundness for me.
Beautiful. My goodness. I tell you that there is a reason why people are, sort of drawn to you. So keep this up. I'm honored that you're here. Thank you so much. And maybe we'll do more of these in the future. Thank you, Kiran. And I'll put the details of how they can reach you or watch you, in our show notes here. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Kiran. Take good care.
Thank you.